Okay, thank you. Welcome to another episode of Kahuna Presents. I'm very fortunate to have with us today Keal Wilson from Car Next Door in Australia, which I think is our first Australian company we've interviewed on this series. So congratulations on being the first, Keal. Tell us about Car Next Door.
Cool. So Car Next Door is a peer-to-peer or neighbor-to-neighbor, as we like to call it, car sharing company or platform. So basically it allows people to rent out their cars when they're not using them. So it's sort of reducing underutilized cars and helps people offset the cost of car ownership.
Okay, so you're obviously located in Australia. What part of Australia?
So we're based in Sydney and we operate all over the east coast of Australia. We're sort of expanding postcode by postcode as time goes on. And we've got a team that's spread out across Australia and other parts of the world as well.
Excellent. So how long have you been with Car Next Door?
So I've been with Car Next Door for just under 2 years, I should say. So I'm our growth team leader and basically look after sort of our growth team and all of the growth initiatives that we have. Okay,
so I read on your website you have 60,000 members and you've paid out $5 million AUD, I'm assuming. So that I think translates to about 3.9, I think, US dollars. So sharers, you have sharers and borrowers, or what do you call them? What's your terminology?
So we call them owners, they're car owners, and we call the other people borrowers. And even, I mean, it's funny how fast things grow, but we're now probably somewhere closer to about 80,000 active borrowers.
Wow.
So website's due for an update for sure.
Yeah, that's a good update to make. So was there when you look back over your 2 years, was there a tipping point in the company's growth where you just kind of like go, yeah, that was it. That's when we hockey sticked?
From what I know, the company's been operating for 5 years. And one of the biggest sort of, pivotal moments in the company's history in terms of when things started to go really, really well was when we got off a proprietary platform, hired a bunch of really good developers, and then developed our own platform for car sharing. We just found that the ones that were out there were pretty archaic, and you're stuck with any new features that you want to add, you're basically stuck with what they can offer. So bringing that in-house was definitely one of the biggest changing points.
Yeah, we experienced that quite a bit actually with international for us, our marketplaces that are operating internationally. It's the technology is hard, and the perspective is simply we can buy it or build it, and oftentimes buying it becomes prohibitive, but it also locks you into a more limited feature set or one that's not optimal for what you're doing. So I think it's a good strategy. Of course, at the same time, Kahuna does sell software, so we're very happy if you would be using Kahuna for some of it at least. All right, so
I'll have to take a look.
Okay, so one of the things that's always fascinated me about the transportation sector is, you have borrowers and owners, and you have to have some route density within a region. And you mentioned you were expanding. Do you have any thoughts on what that ideal density needs to be in a geographic region for your service to take off?
It's funny this because there's things, we've tested theories on this and some of them have been proven wrong, but what we think is sort of the ideal situation for us is organize areas that are well served by public transport, because we see car sharing as being something that falls into a situation where there is reasonably decent public transport, and this fills the gap between people that don't own cars full time. I say full time, but basically don't use their car a lot, and would normally use a different mode of transport for getting around to work or to just around town, and this just perfectly fills that gap. However, there's been times at opposite sort of scenarios with that, where we've launched successfully in an area that doesn't have very good transport because people are more reliant on cars, which sort of means they if they want to get anywhere really easily, they'll need to get a car. So things, and there's also tourist areas and that sort of thing, which have been successful for us as well.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
I saw some interesting research that Uber did, and I don't remember the exact reference for it, but basically they looked at it and said, okay, utilization of Uber when electric bikes and scooter sharing is available versus not. And when bikes and scooters were available, the utilization of Uber went up. So to your point, it's a nice gap filler.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you recruit owners to your service?
Recruiting owners, the sort of strongest channels for owner recruitment for us have been SEO. So like putting out lots of content surrounding the whole space of, the cost of owning a car and how to offset the costs and other things like how to generate passive income and that sort of thing. And that gives us, there's lots of content that we can do in that space. So SEO is a really good bang for buck type thing for us. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we do is a lot of brand advertising on Facebook. Google's been sort of less successful from an owner perspective, mostly because it's a very low search volume for people that are specifically looking to rent out their car. Mm-hmm. So we very much own that one or two keywords, you know what I mean, that are really important to us. But beyond that, it's pretty hard to get growth. Yeah. But one of the other things that works really well for us is the signage on the cars, which we put them on the platform and it says, rent out this car. It sort of seems to be, from a cost perspective, like it's really cost effective for us.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. How about for borrowers? How do you work with them?
Yeah, so borrowers is very, very demand based. So, search is huge for us. So whether it's SEO or AdWords, search is massive because it's a very intent-based thing to say, oh, I need to rent out a car or rent out a van or rent out a ute. And long tail has been a strategy that's been really good for us as well. So if we've got a van or a ute in a particular suburb, then we can build out a landing page that exists for that specific van in that suburb. So if someone says, I need to rent a van in Abbotsford or wherever it is, that van will show up straight away. And it's likely that in smaller suburbs, we're not competing against traditional car rental companies there. Mm.
Now, messaging. So I know you have web, you have in-app, and then you have push, SMS push, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have WeChat or WhatsApp or Line or any of the other messaging services at this point?
At this point, we're not using any of the other messaging services other than Facebook Messenger. That's one we're playing around with bots and that sort of thing at the moment, looking at how we can use it for conversion on the site, but then also looking at how we can use it for lead capture as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So with the three major ones, though, SMS, web, and email, in-app and email, what's your most effective messaging for owners? Let's talk owners first, because I'm going to assume that there's some difference between owners and borrowers. Yeah,
there definitely is. I think from a owner perspective, SMS is probably the best for us. From a borrower perspective, I know you said we stick to owners, but yeah, from a borrower perspective, it's in push notifications, just a little bit more timely.
Do you ever have any challenges going across different devices? So like, for example, I use my iPad at night and I use a phone during the day kind of a thing, and you optimize for the channels?
We're not at that stage. We're really at the point of where we're at in terms of the sophistication of it is really like, oh, what happens if we send a message versus don't send a message here or there? And then looking at the responses from each channel, but we're not at that next stage of going, all right, cool, at this time of day, we should send this. Hopefully we'll get there soon.
Yeah. So we've developed this concept of the 3 laws of marketplaces, which very simply are, first you have to have, buyer and seller density, right? So it's not kind of self-evident, right? You have to have many buyers and many sellers. That's the first law. Second law is trust is your product, right? If your sellers don't trust you to bring good buyers, and if your buyers don't trust your sellers, you're not going to do any business. And then the third is this notion of autonomous value, creating value-add services that, create stickiness within the platform. I get on your growth. You've already nailed the density thing. Your membership is growing wildly. So congratulations. That's outstanding. Now, trust is the product. Second law of marketplace. I know you've done a lot of work with customer support and dispute resolution. I see it all over your website. So this must be an area that really matters to probably your owners more than anybody else. Tell us a little bit about the customer support you're offering.
Yeah, so I mean, from a customer support perspective, we have a few different initiatives that we kind of run at the moment. Like one is obviously damage is a big thing when people are renting out their cars. And so we've now sort of developed there's a few things. So we have a process whereby if a car gets damaged, we can organise, because it's a car share enabled car, we can organise to get a repairer to actually go and pick it up on the owner's behalf, take it to get repaired, and we'll give people, offsets to use another car on the platform while it's in for repairs. So that's just one thing that we do that even an insurance company can't do. The other thing is that we're building out a resolution center so someone can track progress of a claim, that sort of thing. And then additionally, obviously, other than having a call center that takes responses and that sort of thing, we run some initiatives internally to say, like, if you're answering a question on a call and there's no FAQ for it, then, suggest an FAQ, and whoever suggests the most FAQs in that month gets an incentive. So ideally, we want to have any question that possibly get answered. There'll be an FAQ for it.
Yeah, I really loved all the FAQs on your site. I was going through them, and that really spawned, my question about customer support, because clearly that is a major area of focus for you as an organization. Really comes through on the website.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with any marketplace, like especially marketplaces where you're involving person-to-person, contact, and motor vehicles, or anything that moves for that matter, is support's a massive thing.
So you mentioned earlier, you gave an example of truck. I want to get a truck or a van. So you're segmenting on vehicle type. Do you also segment on the borrower, like the age, children, no children, pets, that kind of thing?
What we kind of do is we segment mostly on trip behavior. So we kind of avoided the whole demographic segmentation stuff so much, and focused more on what the uses are. So like, is that person likely to take long trips frequently on weekends? Okay, cool. So if they are, then let's target them with more content about like nice places to go camping or that sort of thing. And the other stuff is, if they're taking a lot of short trips, then we can assume that those people are just using it for local running errands and that sort of thing. So then it might be more about like how they can cut costs in other areas of their lives. That sort of
cool.
That's interesting to them.
All right, so
and the other one that we do a bit of quite a bit of segmentation on is like when people have taken an action and then failed to, so they might have taken a bunch of trips and then they've dropped off, for 90 days. So like, why haven't they come back? And then sometimes, we'll incentivize them with credit or whatever and get them back engaging with the platform.
Yeah. Yeah, that dormancy issue. I mean, one of my questions is around churn, but it's really about dormancy more than anything else, because what we find with marketplaces is the buyers and sellers may go to different marketplaces, but the buyers tend to just kind of drop out completely. They just go quiet. And how do you get them back and re-engaged is a big topic. We see that consistently across every marketplace we talk to. All right, so my last question is onboarding. Now, owners and borrowers clearly have different onboarding. Have you, being a growth marketer, I'm sure you got this nailed down into a series of steps. What are the 3, 4, 5 things that a new owner, a new member, whether they're an owner or a borrower, needs to do to get onboarded?
Yeah, so owners and borrowers, I'll talk about owners first of all. So we've identified that, we still have a sales team that supports owner acquisition. Car owner acquisition for us is a lot more intensive than borrower acquisition. Borrower acquisition, we rarely speak to them while they're signing up, whereas owner acquisition is, people are concerned. It's probably their second most valuable asset after their house. So we have a sales team that supports that. So the first thing we try to do is we capture information about, is their car eligible to actually go on the platform? And are they likely to be the type of owner that's going to do well based on how available that car is, and how valuable the car is as well. And then we'll sort of segment based on those. What we then do is we actually then get our owners and borrowers to go through the same identity verification process. So we look at their past driving history, and we look at their credit score, and we look at their identification and process that. Ultimately, there's kind of two benefits to that. Well, one, for borrowers, we have a number of different checks to know that whether they're going to play nice, they're not going to break anything, they're going to pay at the end of their booking. But the other thing is that there's a flip side of that, because it actually gives owners a bit of information about how we identify borrowers as well, and what we put borrowers through when they're signing up for the process. So showing them that level of security is beneficial, but obviously it's always a challenge. The more steps you have in an onboarding process, the harder it is to get people through.
How do you re-engage them if they drop out of the onboarding journey?
Right now, we do a bit of we do retargeting, of course, and we do that on Facebook and Google. We've done some experiments with YouTube retargeting, which is, well, it's not that it hasn't been effective, it's just been difficult for us to measure, because it's hard to get direct conversions off that. The other thing we do, obviously, we have automated comms, we have push notifications. So there's a few different things. When I say automated comms, I mean SMS and email. But there's a few things that we do in terms of, so they're sort of main things. What we're looking at now is what can we do in terms of leading people through the process. So having a little tutorial, a little, bubbles that pop up and say, oh, here's what you've got to do next, that sort of thing, to coach people through. And the other thing that we're sort of in the process of testing at the moment is putting live chat in the application forms. So while they're applying, any questions, click here, and then they can engage with somebody. Very cool.
Keal Wilson, Car Next Door in Australia. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you have, well, I guess you're coming into spring now, so it's really cold here. Enjoy your spring and summer. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me.